Jesus called those who follow him to become like him and to point people to him. And by practicing radically ordinary hospitality, it's been giving us chances to do just that, especially in a social climate that seems to discourage us from wanting to talk about our faith at all. Now, this idea of talking to people about Jesus, the big church word, is evangelism. Some of you have heard this before. And it's kind of a dirty word in modern society when you take a step back. All this means is sharing the message of Jesus, his grace and truth, what he did on the cross and his resurrection from the grave, that the forgiveness of sins could be available to all people. It's sharing that message with someone in hopes that they too would come to put their faith in Jesus. And for decades, it's been uncomfortable. You know, people have felt uncomfortable with this or stepping out to try and do it. But in the last couple of decades, it's no longer uncomfortable. It's almost viewed as immoral to do this. If you're a Jesus follower, you often feel caught up in a tension between two forces kind of pulling you in different ways. The first is the pull of culture that says keep your faith private. But the second pull that you feel as a Jesus follower is the pull of Jesus that says make your faith public. This is the dichotomy that those who follow Jesus have to navigate in 2023. And at Mosaic, we're a church filled with people who are not religious or churchgoers at all before coming to put their trust in Christ here in our church. So we're a community filled with people who've had their lives completely changed by the grace of God. We want other people to experience that too. But so often we don't know what to say or what to do or how to navigate these tensions. We don't know what to say in a pluralistic, highly intellectual, spiritually open but religiously suspicious context that is the Baltimore, D.C. area. And whenever we do try to talk about our faith, sometimes it feels like a tone-deaf, gross product placement, and someone looks at you weird, and you don't know what to do with that, and it's just really uncomfortable for a lot of us. Especially when you add on that the ultimate religion in this part of the world is relativity and subjective truth. So to even suggest that Jesus is the way is offensive. It could stir up hostility. It turns people away a little bit. But when Jesus called his followers, if you're familiar with the Bible at all, you'll know this. When Jesus told his followers to go and make disciples and share the message of his love, it's not called the Great Suggestion. It's not called the Great, hey, do it if you want. It's called the Great Commission. It's a command of Jesus to go out into the world and declare and display his love and his truth to those that God has entrusted to be in your proximity. But again, we just don't know what to say. So we say dumb things or we don't say anything at all. And Lifeway Research is like the Christian Pew Research Center. It's all about churches and faith, and they have some studies that kind of capture what you and I feel. They did a national study, and they found only 1/3 of all Christians shared their faith with anyone last year. They found that 10% were eager, less than 10% were eager to share their faith. And they found that 58% of Christians were negative or neutral about sharing their faith in Christ. And, you know, this captures how many of us feel about evangelism. We're either reluctant, indifferent, or just, scared. But there's some other numbers that have come out recently that get me really excited about what God has put before us as a church and what you all have been stepping into. Another Christian research center is called the Barna Group. And they interviewed tens of thousands of atheists, agnostics, and nuns. And I don't mean nuns. I mean people who have none religious affiliation on their census. Okay, so atheists, agnostics, and those who say none when they get asked about faith. And here's what they asked them. What are you looking for most in life? Here's what those people said. 30% said they wanted peace. 24% said they wanted hope. 23% said they wanted truth. And a bunch said they wanted growth and healing. Meaning, the very things people are longing for are the very things that are on the menu when you come to Jesus. These are the things that Jesus promises those who commit themselves to him and practice his way. And here's why evangelism is such a big deal to me. It's not just that Jesus said so, which would be enough because he's God and he died for you. It's that our hurting and broken world is longing for these things. But instead of getting a beautiful picture of what life with God looks like, they're getting a counterfeit, careless, and uncompelling vision of who God is and what is available to them. Like instead of a thoughtful, courageous, and compassionate dialogue, they get street corner preachers who make them think they don't have a place in the house of God or a family of God unless they believe everything as they say. Instead of a relational presence that steps into difficult things, they see political posts and assume that you have to get in line on all this stuff in order to be loved by Christ. And perhaps worst of all, the Christians they do know have taken the greatest message the world has ever known and made it boring, toothless, and stale. But despite all this, the reality of hell and the hope of heaven and the love of God is too great for it to remain hidden in our lives. So we have to find a way forward when we feel indifferent, when we feel reluctant.